This is going to be a film study / commentary talking about the Ravens-Vikings matchup in Week 10 in Minnesota. Specifically, I'm going to focus on Derrick Henry and a run concept that Todd Monken utilized later in 2024 that kind of caught defenses off guard. I'm not saying that I think it's going to exploit Minnesota's scheme. I'm quite sure that Brian Flores is going to be prepared for option concepts, but I do wonder, given the recent surge in stopping the run that Minnesota's put out on the field, 2 of their last 3 games, they've held quality rushing attacks to far less than 100 yards. I'm referring to, of course, their Week 7 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles at home. They held Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts and company to 45 yards on the ground. And then last week, their road victory over the Detroit Lions, they limited Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery to 65 yards total. So in order to get into the option read element of this, what I call trap option, I actually have to show a typical trap play. The Ravens' run game has not shown as much diversity in 2025. A lot of factors, right? The loss or missing Patrick Ricard for so long, number one. And number two, Lamar Jackson not playing a single snap over a 2-week period against the Rams and the Bears. This is a trap concept with Voorhees, the left tackle, pulling and kicking out. It's a long trap. So what that means is they're trapping the defensive end. I think it's Phillips, who's since moved on, instead of the defensive tackle. That would just be a typical trap. Long just indicates that the guard has to go a longer way in order to execute the trap. Isaiah Likely is moving up to the linebacker level immediately, getting a free release, and that allows us to block everybody up. And you can see the lane that is here for Derrick Henry. We do have a defensive tackle kind of working his way through here. It's a big gain, but look, the reality is it's an 8-on-6, in the box at the beginning of the snap for the Ravens. You can see in here in the picture right now, we've got 8 Ravens and then only 6 Dolphin defenders. Why? It's a 2nd and 20. So it's quite possible that in a different situation, Miami or in fact, Minnesota this week would be able to get that 7th defender nearer to the box and not give Henry as big of a lane here as you see on this 15-yard gain. Same play from the end zone angle, just to illustrate, they're in a 2-high safety structure, all right? And that affords us more space, if you will, once we get through the first level than perhaps we would have if it's a 1st and 10 or a 2nd and 3. The trap concept, again, we're kicking out the defensive end or outside linebacker Phillips with Voorhees, and Henry's getting downhill. Lamar is certainly looking to the side. I don't think he's actually reading this. There's a couple of reasons I can give you for that, but it's critical that the Ravens can get to the backside inside linebacker. Well, any offensive line trying to run the football, you've got to be able to get to the backside inside linebacker and either cut him off or force him to flow over the top such that the running back can cut it back. I'll give you the end zone angle just so I can give you a little bit of proof, in my opinion, as to why I think this is not a read versus the next 2 or 3 snaps that I'll show you. So you can look at the block that is illustrated by Ronnie Stanley. If it's trap option, which we'll see on the next couple of snaps, he'll move up to the linebacker level. That's not what occurs here. He basically cups on the backside. Since you've got a trap concept with Voorhees, he's just trying to make sure that the backside defensive end can't close down and tackle Henry. Yes, Lamar is looking at that defensive end or that OLB, making it look like it could be a read play. It's not here in this iteration. All right, now this one's an unsuccessful play for the Ravens. Obviously, you do have 7 players in the box now, so mathematically, it works out in the Dolphins' favor. Still 8 for the Ravens and 7 for Miami. So 1st and 10 on the 7th possession in the 3rd quarter. The difference is here now, this is the read man, and the way that we can prove it is, Ronnie Stanley, the path that he takes. I do think that if you're an option team, the Ravens are not at this point, he's just got to deal with the nearest threat and let Lamar read the next man out, and Stanley just deal with this guy in the same manner that I just displayed on the previous snap, which was just a trap play. Here's the trap block, or one of them, I should say. It's the inside trap. It's by Voorhees. Falele is also pulling and trapping or kicking out Phillips. So you're getting this action on this defender, and then Voorhees trap or kick out the defensive tackle. I call this trap read because Lamar could theoretically keep it around the edge. If the edge defender crashes, which is exactly what he does here, the difference is you've got a second defender, an inside linebacker, aligned or set outside of that OLB. So really, essentially here, we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. Lamar is, almost put in a no-win situation, which is why, in my opinion, Stanley just should have dealt with the edge defender, which I think was Chubb. Same play from the end zone angle. This is the formation as a fan that you can kind of see pre-snap and know that we might have option. Now, I call this trips closed B. B just indicates that the tight end and the running back are on separate sides from each other. If the running back, Henry, was over here, it'd be trips closed A. Closed just indicates that you've got a tight end on the backside who's tightly aligned to the tackle. Of course, there's many other terminologies or systems that use different words or phrases. Read man, Chubb, running down the line of scrimmage, and he'll be the guy who tackles, I almost said Barkley, who tackles Henry for a short gain. I think it goes for 2 yards. And you can see the inside linebacker's alignment is probably as a result of two different factors. Number one, it's trips. So we're talking about this inside linebacker right here, and we've got trips. So if Lamar was to mesh with Henry and then keep it around the edge, we've got 4. This would essentially be the 4th defender. So they've just widened him up to the trips for probably multiple reasons. Game plan, situation, who knows. If Lamar keeps it, according to his read, Chubb running down the line of scrimmage, who tackles Henry. Normally, if the read man tackles the running back, then you should have kept it. Well, the way Miami's playing it, they're running the inside linebacker to Lamar, the OLB to Henry, so they've got it all covered. I mean, maybe we're predictable. Maybe we just should keep the ball and throw it out in the flats. The point here for me is that we didn't really run this at all so far in 2025. I think maybe one time against whoever we played before the Rams. I think, and it was weird. I think it was with Cooper Rush on the field, who's not going to keep the football, obviously. So it looked like trap read to me. With Tyler Huntley playing against the Bears and playing quite well, we actually did run 2 option concepts with him. He can give you a reasonable facsimile of what Lamar offers as a keep out to the edge. In my opinion, against this Vikings team, we may have to go with more options than we have so far in 2025, and then even we as Ravens fans would like to admit. This was a huge concept later on in the year, particularly against division opponents. To be honest with you, it's rarely observed at any level of football, but quite obviously the NFL. Henry utilized this against the Browns and the Steelers. I'm going to show you one play each. Again, this is from 2024 film. Look, so far this year, his numbers aren't bad, right? 627 or 629 rushing yards, 4.9 yards per carry. So for most other running backs, that's a really solid year. The problem is that last year he scored 16 touchdowns, averaged 113 yards a game on 5.9 yards per carry. I think, or I suspect, that Lamar missing so much time impacted Henry's ability to dominate or even have an impact at times. It could also be because the option game has been removed from our play calling sheet with Cooper Rush on the field, number one, and number two, when Lamar was most likely injured earlier in the season. So I'll try to explain this trap option. I actually talked about it last year. Same dynamic with the left guard, okay? Henry on the left-hand side. And so he's going to pull and go to kick out. Normally it's a defensive tackle that lines up in the B gap. That defensive tackle for Cleveland kind of plays a game here a little bit. We're talking about 92. He's not getting himself upfield. He appears to be reading and reacting to Falele. Look how quickly he steps to the outside. Basically, he's reacting to Falele's block. Well, this is an influence trap. Great, thank you. You just widened yourself up such that Voorhees has a better angle to go get you, number one. Number two, Lamar is reading the end. Man on the line of scrimmage, could be a defensive end, outside linebacker. What's the difference? It's an edge defender. This is a gap scheme with a zone mentality by the running back and by the backside tackle, which is Stanley. So what I mean is we're blocking gap stuff. Down, trap. Typically you would get, down and a trap, but it's an influence. So we're actually trapping this guy. So normally what would occur here is he would step around and go to the frontside inside linebacker. I mean, he as in Rosengarten. And then Falele would step out and trap the defensive end. And we have widened successfully, widened up the defensive tackle for the trap concept, but there's a zone element to this, and I think it typically revolves around Linderbaum's block on this nose tackle. And you'll get a real great illustration of that against the Steelers in a moment. Basically, if that nose tackle is able to cross Linderbaum's face, he's now in the window, in the lane for where Henry should go. This is not just Derrick Henry doing this. He's exceptional at reading and reacting to things, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he couldn't do this on the fly, but this is coached. So you've basically got this merging or hybrid nature of a gap scheme concept and then zone elements to it, especially on the backside. It's a read for Lamar, but once the ball is given, it's really also a read for Derrick Henry. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. This is one of the reasons why I really love this play. Think of the previous snap that I showed you against the Dolphins, right, where they walked up their inside linebacker. So instead of this inside linebacker being here, imagine he's gone, and this is the inside linebacker. So they destroyed it being Miami with the defensive end running down the line to Henry and the inside linebacker off the edge for Lamar. So if we're reading this guy, it's a give on the previous play against the Dolphins. If we're reading this guy, it should be a keep. And then Lamar keeps the football and runs right into the inside linebacker. I know that, partially getting away with one there because this is not actually an inside linebacker for the Cleveland Browns. This is. But the point, I think, still stands, is that Stanley's just going to take that guy wherever he wants to go. And then Henry's going to work off reading this block and then secondary reading Stanley's block on the inside linebacker. It's a great play. I'm not saying it's a foolproof concept, number one. Number two, the Minnesota Vikings, the way that they operate and bring pressure, they might just see Henry in the backfield set to one side of Lamar, and they may just bring heat and just totally take away the option game. That could open us up to things down the field. We want to avoid as many 2nd and 8s, 3rd and 6s as possible against Brian Flores' group because that's where they flourish, in my opinion. Against the Steelers, I believe this is our late season win at home in the regular season. I don't think this is the playoff game, but I could be wrong. Same dynamic exists with Henry set to Lamar's left and the left guard, in fact, in this case, McCarry, stepping out to trap block the defensive tackle. Benton is responding to the pull by Falele. Falele's pulling and trying to kick that edge defender, Herbig. So we've influenced him to widen himself up, and that allows McCarry to trap him. And you can see the path that Derrick Henry, quote, should take, except, again, you've got the nose tackle dealing with Linderbaum, and then a lot of space underneath here for Henry. Instead of hitting it to the front side, he just is going to wind it back underneath the read man, and Stanley is taking the inside linebacker to that side, wherever he wants to go. The Steelers had no answer for this one. We had seen it, a trap option a handful of times. Well, I showed you the play against the Browns, but Monken wasn't running this, early in 2024, even in the midseason. This, to me, was an evolution or maybe something he saved in his pocket. It's tremendously effective because of Lamar, number one, but also it absolves the offensive line of having to, quote, win their individual matchup without any help or any leverage. Basically, some option schemes, whether it's zone read option, whether it's dual read, which the Ravens, do run. They ran it with Huntley against the Bears on a critical 3rd and 2. Or whether it's traditional, I should say, under center, triple option like Navy style. In my opinion, it can take an average offensive line and make them look good, or take an above average offensive line or make them look very good. Or in the case of the Baltimore Ravens, at times throughout the past 2 or 3 years, especially in 2024, it can take an above average to good offensive line and make them look great. I'm limiting my focus here to this one concept, right? The Ravens offensive line can execute it. You see, examples of it there. Ways to put the defense in conflict. It doesn't have to be zone read option or dual read or even a trap option. It could be an RPO with a screen attached to it. Typical play action. We have those elements. The option game has pretty much been non-existent in 2025, in my opinion. It makes everybody talks about Lamar making running backs better. Yes, that's true. The option game is a huge element to that as well. Basically creating more horizontal conflict, maybe 8%, 10%, maybe even as much as 12% more conflict to stretch a defense horizontally and give them, for lack of a better word, no good option, no good choice, no viable choice. I think Henry still looks like the same guy when we see him running with some space. We've missed Ricard in 2025. Lamar not being there, huge subtraction in a lot of ways, right? The confidence that he brings, the confidence he has, the ability to execute so many different techniques, the passing ability, the red zone touchdowns, but also the option aspect has been totally dormant in 2025. I don't think this offensive line is good enough on a week-by-week basis to just line up and beat people without some other factor, something else that kind of tips things in our favor. The option is one of those factors, in my opinion. Statistically, it can make the offensive line look better than it is. I think that's common knowledge, to be honest with you. That's just my experience. Now, that may not be common knowledge at the NFL level. And look, the Ravens are not an option team, not at this point. Haven't been for, a couple of years, but because of Lamar's experience in the Greg Roman offense for years, it was pre-installed. And it's entirely possible that Monken's, not going to plan to use option against the Vikings. He may not want to put Lamar at risk. I suspect that this is one of the strategical or tactical choices, I should say, that Monken could make that could allow us to hold on to the football longer. Essentially, turn a lot of 2nd and 8s into a 1st and 10. 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. Instead of dealing with their mug defensive looks, take everybody down, run some option, and let Lamar get out in space, run out of bounds for a 4-yard gain, and we get a new set of downs. Last week, Minnesota kept Gibbs and Montgomery to 65 yards on 20 carries. They haven't been great this year against the run, generally. I'm talking about Minnesota. So week 2 against the Falcons, they gave up 218 yards, Bijan Robinson. They gave up 130 and 140 in consecutive weeks against the Steelers and the Browns, AFC North opponents. If we could get to 140, we're in business for getting a win against this Vikings team, in my opinion. 140 rushing yards, no turnovers on offense. I think we win this game. I don't know what the score is, but it just looks like a winning formula to me. Comparing Goff to Lamar is unfair to both of them to a certain degree, but conceptually, Minnesota didn't have to worry about Goff running the football at all. Certainly not him keeping things on option concepts. If Brian Flores' group can hold our running backs, all 3 of them, to 65 carries on 20 yards, or 65 yards on 20 carries, and they play the quality of pass defense and get the pressure they did against Detroit, we're in trouble. We're absolutely in trouble. But A, Henry can do anything. B, Lamar is back. I think the under center power run concept, the power concept, should either be abandoned or pushed way down the list of available run concepts that we trust and we can go to in critical situations. It's not been good. It's not been productive. It's not been consistent at all. Yeah, occasionally there's been some running lanes for Henry. I'd prefer to see like lead zone under center with Ricard in front, because Henry can, inside zone, outside zone, duo, counter, power, trap option, which I just showed and talked about. I'm really interested to see what our coaches, Monken, I should say, what he's picked up on film from the Chargers game, because in the last 3 weeks, Minnesota's defense, they held the Eagles to 45 yards on the ground. And then Detroit last week, 65. But sandwiched in between that is this 207-yard explosion from the Chargers and, you guessed it, Greg Roman. I don't pretend to think that Roman used a ton of option concepts. I actually don't know. I have the game downloaded to hopefully watch this evening, Thursday night. We're traveling, so I have a little bit of time to maybe do that with family around to check out my kids and hopefully have some fun with them. I think this is a far more challenging and difficult game than many others offered 3 or 4 weeks ago when, Carson Wentz is playing football for them. Yes, they beat the Cleveland Browns, but it was 21-17. They lost to the Steelers, lost a close one to the Eagles, and then got blown out by the Chargers. J.J. McCarthy comes back, and they look like last week at least, they look like the Minnesota Vikings team that Vikings fans, that their front office, that O'Connell and Flores thought that they were going to be coming into 2025. I think this is a challenging game. They systematically destroyed Detroit's offense last week. I know Detroit got to 24 points. Their special teams was bad, they being the Lions. In addition, they had a field goal blocked and a really, really unfortunate fumble by David Montgomery in the third quarter that allowed Minnesota to push their 17-14 lead to 24-14. I think the option game is something that the Ravens have at all times in their pocket with Lamar, whether Derrick Henry's around or available or not. Henry's ability to read on zone stuff, great vision, patience, and understanding of the concepts, in my opinion, could really help this trap option. And we may only use it 3 times in this game. But if we use it 3 times and we hit for 28 yards, I hope we use it 5 times. I hope we make the Vikings defend as much of the field horizontally and vertically as possible. I'll have another video out at some point, either Friday, Saturday, talking about the vertical passing game and how I would like to see us attack down the field some, whether it's in the middle of the field, outside the numbers, whatever. Watching Minnesota's defense last week against the Lions gave me a healthy amount of respect for what they do. At times, it looked like they had 12 players on the field. That's how fast they looked. That's how quick and reactive they appeared, at least against Detroit. They certainly didn't the week before at home, or on the road against the Los Angeles Chargers. And so my final point is, when the Ravens run option with Lamar, it's oftentimes in the past looked like we're playing 12 on 11. So this is one of the concepts, trap option with zone read as well, dual read, QB counter read or bash, where we basically are playing with a man advantage because of Lamar. And I'd like to see Todd Monken and the offensive staff take advantage of that option, for lack of a better word, this week. I think that it's something that could prove fruitful against this Vikings defense and basically keep them on the field longer, keep the Vikings defense on the group longer in more 2nd and 4s and 3rd and 2s, as opposed to 2nd and 8 and 3rd and 6. That's really what it comes down to me. If we're able to avoid turnovers and then run the football with some level of consistency, 140 would be great overall production. 120 is also great. You've got the Lamar effect. If Lamar played for the Lions last week, the running backs might have only had 20 carries for 65 yards, but Lamar probably adds 45 himself. And so huge factor here, swing factor, I should say, in this game is A, how much option do we run? And B, how do the Vikings deal with it while still staying sound on the back end? Appreciate you guys' time. I know this is a different kind of preview. Only showed 4 plays that are very singular in focus, trap concepts, but it's a unique situation. It's a unique concept that I think Monken is going to a little bit more here earlier in the season than he did in 2024 because we need it. The option concepts helps this offensive line look better and helps free up space for Henry, Lamar, and many others. Appreciate you guys' time.